I have the very unpleasant duty of announcing this morning that we have our first confirmed case of a Belizean citizen having tested positive for COVID-19. The person is a Belizean citizen, but goes back and forth between our country and the US, came into Belize from Los Angeles on Thursday, as I understand it, had already started feeling unwell, and so went straight into self-isolation.
The first confirmed case of novel coronavirus was recorded in San Pedro by the Ministry of Health today. After several weeks of closely monitoring the spread of the pandemic within the region, Belize now joins over 190 countries that are affected by COVID-19.
We have identified the case. She has been in self-isolation. She doesn't require, at this point in time, hospitalization, which means we are not going to bring her to the facility. She is self-isolated home. Being told this morning she's actually improving. Her family members that are in the immediate contact will be screened, as is the process, and we do mapping exercise in terms of who she may have been in contact with in her before she actually got to San Pedro.
Health authorities have commenced contact tracing via the individual's travel history in order to determine who the patient may have also exposed to the virus while en route to Ambergris Key. A state of emergency has also been declared on the island. This will allow for the ministry to conduct the exercise properly.
While we don't know for sure, and while the full tracing and mapping exercise will be done, it does seem as though there was very minimal contact with anyone except for the physician that attended the person at the private clinic she visited, and that physician was properly protected.
The initial case was confirmed at about 10:45 p.m. on Sunday, after health officials had conducted 11 tests, including the one in San Pedro that has returned positive.
We have 11 swabs done yesterday. The only one that came back positive is the one that we are confirming today. Just one other thing in terms of screening. When you are taken for screening, you will do a first test. If that is reactive, then you have a confirmatory test done. So both of them would have turned out to be positive before we can actually come back to you and say we have a confirmed case.
Along with this confirmation comes restrictions that government has already begun to implement for residents and non-residents of San Pedro in an effort to mitigate the spread of the virus.
There are things we're going to be doing to ensure that, in fact, that is going to happen. The principal message, apart from making the announcement I just did, the principal message I want to send out this morning is this. We, I repeat, must take this thing extremely seriously. But we mustn't overreact, and we mustn't panic.
But residents of the island town have done quite the opposite. Immediately following the Prime Minister's televised announcement, there were snaking queues at the water taxi terminals as many attempted to flee the location.
We're asking San Pedranos to, as it were, shelter in place. We know that there are people, today is the last day for the international flights, and we know that there are people who are coming in from the island to try to actually get out of the country. So we're not enforcing, as from today, any kind of quarantine with respect to the island, but we're asking San Pedranos not to come to the mainland except it is absolutely essential, and we're asking mainlanders not to go to San Pedro except it is absolutely essential. We will give some thought to whether, in fact, we need to impose a quarantine. If we do, after further consultation with the medical personnel, it would only be for something like 48 hours. That is the kind of time frame that they need to do as comprehensive a mapping exercise as possible.
2 health teams have since been dispatched to San Pedro to assist with the timely mapping of all persons who potentially came into contact with the 38-year-old woman. As is required by international standards, the Ministry of Health has proceeded to inform the World Health Organization as well as the Pan American Health Organization.
I will have to go and set up the template report for WHO and PAHO as a first confirmed case. We are going to label it as an imported case because the travel history, the 10 days prior to her arrival here, is exclusively in the U.S.
Reporting for News 5, I am Isani Cayetano.